our nation, our beloved Canada, is under threat. It is an economic threat, but it's also a threat to our values of decency and inclusion. It's a threat to our sovereignty and our very future as a nation. The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator. He's threatening massive tariffs to try and break us as a people. But the threat is also being driven by the hate algorithms of the oligarchs like Elon Musk. And there is the threat from people in our own country who would sell out our birthright to appease the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago. That is not going to happen. This morning, we launched the Pledge for Canada. We have signatories from across the cultural and political spectrum. We are asking Canadians to join and sign on today. It's a plan of resistance supporting a vision of our nation and what it should be and what it is that will not be traded away by appeasement. And it's a pledge for ordinary Canadians to hold their elected representatives to account, to defend our values that we hold dear. I've been honored to be part of this team. It started out as a small group, reaching out to other Canadian voices to try and find a way to come together in this age of Trump. And what we learned very quickly is that Canadians are proud and fiercely determined. We love our country and we will stand up for it. And what we are calling for today is an all-of-Canada approach in dealing with Trump. It's about fighting to protect all of our regions and our jobs, our linguistic, cultural, and Indigenous rights. We will not give up our belief in inclusive democracy, equity, and human rights. We need to combat the foreign interference from both the public and private actors and the manipulations of the digital platforms and defend our people against the rule of the oligarchs. We must give priority at this time to protecting our environment, to maintain control of our water, and staying focused on fighting the climate crisis. And it's becoming very clear that to build resiliency for Canada in this increasingly turbulent world, it means actually lessening our dependency on our southern neighbor.
Hear, hear.
To strengthen our collective tools and institutions to build the Canada that we want, not the world that Trump is trying to create. And that means reaching out to democratic allies around the world who are determined to protect democracy from the likes of Trump and Putin. And we cannot turn away our historic role of being a humanitarian friend for those suffering in this world. Our borders must continue to welcome and protect those seeking and deserving shelter in our lands. Okay, so what does a pledge mean? Well, today is the beginning of a grassroots resistance. We're asking people from across Canada to sign their names, to join us so we can start to build this movement. This is going to be the first stage of a much broader-based resistance to defend the values of our beloved country and to respect the sacrifices of Canadians who came before us and gave their all so that other nations might live in peace. We will not squander their legacy. We are Canada, and our message to Donald Trump is we will not bend or break no matter what happens. We pledge to be there for Canada.
It needs to be said, a lot of y'all should stop talking about politics because you are fucking stupid. You're not informed. You're just emotional. Y'all are the same people who, when presented with historical facts, you say, I don't agree with that. It's not for you to agree with. A lot of y'all overreact to the headlines. You only read the headlines and you do no actual research of your own. And y'all also cherry pick history. A lot.
The first thing my fiance said to me this morning as we were watching it was he looked over at me and he says, I don't think you hate these Democrats enough based on their line of questioning, their attitude, their complete disregard for the impact of what they were saying and the fact that millions of Americans were hearing these words and hearing these unfounded criticisms of a guy who has given his life to the Democratic Party up until just recently. So, you know, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot right now because MAGA and MAHA, they're bipartisan. It's now a unity movement. And they're shooting themselves in their foot. The Democrats are going to lose so many more supporters, I think, after today.
Wir haben die Antworten. Wir haben einen Plan. Wir haben einen Zukunftsplan für Deutschland, den wir in den ersten 100 Tagen einer Regierungsbeteiligung angehen. Die Grenzen lückenlos schließen und jeden illegal und ohne Papiere Einreisenden zurückweisen und eine ganz klare Ansage an alle Welt: Die deutschen Grenzen sind dicht, liebe Freunde. Sie sind dicht. Die Versorgung von Asylbewerbern von Geld auf Sachleistungen umstellen. Sozialleistungen für nicht aufenthaltsberechtigte streichen und Rückführung im großen Stil durchführen. Und ich muss Ihnen ganz ehrlich sagen, wenn es dann Remigration heißen soll, dann heißt es eben Remigration. Das Asylrecht muss endlich eingehalten werden. Asyl ist Aufenthalt auf Zeit und endet, wenn der Fluchtgrund entfällt. Versorgung von Flüchtlingen vor Ort, damit sie erst gar nicht nach Deutschland kommen. Turbo-Einbürgerung und die Verramschung des deutschen Passes, so wie es die CDU betreibt, sofort beenden. Das ist mit uns nicht zu machen. Und nach dem Vorbild der Niederlande und von Ungarn Ausstieg aus dem EU-Asylsystem. Ganz einfach. Deutschland wird unter unserer Führung aus dem EU-Asylsystem austreten. Darauf können Sie sich verlassen.
If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? It's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million.
Now have black and white evidence that the FBI interfered in the 2016 election. And then when they failed to get their candidate elected, Hillary Clinton, then they just set out to destroy the Trump administration. So then go up to 2020. It was the CIA this time that got involved in the 2020 election with those 51 former intel agents who talked about the Hunter Biden laptop as total Russian disinformation. So they've gotten away with it for 2 elections. They're for sure going to get away with it, try to get away with it in 24, right? Because there's no consequence. The difference is in 2024, the evidence is there. We now have the Durham investigation. We have all the congressional investigations. There is now hard evidence that there was election interference by the U.S. intelligence agencies and the Department of Justice. They've got to be terrified, those individuals have to be terrified that a Republican president comes in the 2024 election with a Republican attorney general, investigates them and charges them all with the crimes they've committed over the last 8 years.
And one of my thoughts on listening to Elizabeth Warren at the end of the hearing today and in the middle as well was, what did I ever see in her? You know, this is one of the places where my position is just completely flipped. Like, I was encouraged by her as a potential nominee years and years and years ago for president. And I see nothing honorable or straightforward or upright about any of what she did in this hearing today.
Yeah, I agree. And I was never as compelled by Elizabeth Warren, but I was compelled by Bernie Sanders. And I haven't seen anything from him in years that tells me what I saw there. I guess somebody willing to buck the trends of power, but, having buckled to the Clintons I think he's a lost cause as well.
You guys anxious? What do you do?
Unemployed.
Yeah. Well, sure. That would make me anxious as well. What did you do before?
Worked for the DNC.
Yeah, they're cutting jobs right now, I'll tell you that. Everyone out. We need 100% turnover. What did you do for the DNC?
Counter misinformation.
I'm sorry, I don't think anyone did a worse job than you. This past year, bro, you did the worst job. Really? I wanted to do a set, but now I'm really interested in what you're saying. You were countering misinformation. How were you supposed to go about doing that? Just commenting on TikToks? Yeah, actually, if you look at the facts, this isn't true. Going on Rogan's YouTube page. Well, if you look it up, vaccines are actually quite safe. From the DNC official page. Yeah, no. I know, we're all in this room. We all know. You might want to just not say that was your last job. What are you applying for now? What?
Isn't it true you have a science degree from Yale?
Bachelor of Arts degree.
Is it a political science degree?
Yes, political science.
So how do you get a Bachelor of Arts in a science?
Well, it's liberal arts education and degree. It's a bachelor.
Okay, so it's not really science. So I think it's somewhat appropriate that somebody with a pseudoscience degree is here pushing pseudoscience in front of our committee today. Let's get back to the science of it. Let me ask you this. What's the consensus on parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere?
About 406 today.
Okay, 406. Are you aware?
350 being the level that scientists have said is dangerous.
Are you aware that since mammals have walked the planet, the average has been over 1,000 parts per million?
Yeah, but we weren't walking the planet. Let me just share with you that we now know that definitively at no point during at least the past 800,000 years has atmospheric CO2 been as high as it is today.
The reason you chose 800,000 years ago is because for 200 million years before that, it was greater than it is today. And I'm going to submit for the record.
Yeah, but there weren't human beings. I mean, there was a different world, folks. We didn't have 7 billion people.
So how did it get to 2,000 parts per million if we humans weren't here?
Because there were all kinds of geologic events happening on Earth which spewed up.
Did geology stop when we got on the planet?
Mr. Chairman, this is just not a serious conversation.
Your testimony is not serious.
Congress originally envisioned the ODNI to be a small coordinating agency that directs, rather than replicates, the now 18 constituent agencies that make up our intelligence community. Will you commit today to working with this committee to restoring the ODNI to its original size, scope, and function?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you and the committee as I, if confirmed, assess the current status of who is working in the ODNI and the function that they fulfill to make sure of its effectiveness and elimination of redundancies and bloating.
If confirmed, you'll be entrusted with our nation's most important secrets. We're all entrusted with that information to serve the American people and to keep our country safe. Unfortunately, as you said in your opening statement, we've seen too many instances in recent years of people who were trusted with classified information and went on to abuse and politicize that trust. For example, in October 2020, more than 50 former intelligence officers, many of whom still held a top secret clearance, wrote a letter invoking their credentials to make false claims about Hunter Biden's laptop, likely being Russian disinformation. Do you agree that this was an example of intelligence professionals abusing and politicizing their past positions and credentials?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do, and it is an example of what needs to end and why the American people elected President Trump to bring about those necessary reforms.
Thank you. Will you commit that no one who abuses his past position and credentials in this fashion will hold a security clearance in the future?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I want to be fair to my Democratic colleagues. Such abuses aren't just a problem on the left. Also in 2020, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, published a book in which he revealed sensitive conversations with the president on national security matters, including highly classified information. He didn't submit this book for review and approval to ensure that our national security secrets were protected. Do you agree that John Bolton's actions likewise undermined public trust?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Will you commit that no one who so abuses his past position and risks the exposure of classified information by publishing a book without submitting it for review and getting approval before publication will hold a security clearance again or be trusted with classified information again?
Yes.
Thank you. Congress originally envisioned the ODNI to be a small coordinating agency that directs rather than replicates the now 18 constituent agencies that make up our intelligence community. Over the years, however, the ODNI has strayed from this vision to an organization that now publicly boasts nearly 2,000 people, more than half of whom are not detailed from an intelligence agency, but rather are career ODNI bureaucrats. They've even developed centers that are producing their own analysis. Will you commit today to working with this committee to restoring the ODNI to its original size, scope, and function?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you and the committee as I, if confirmed, assess the current status of who is working in the ODNI and the function that they fulfill to make sure of its effectiveness and elimination of redundancies and bloating.
Thank you. Do you support some of the policy proposals I mentioned in my opening statement about capping the size of the ODNI, eliminating ODNI taxes, returning employees back to their home agencies to do real intelligence work?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you as we assess where the ODNI needs to be in order to fulfill its core mission and function.
Thank you. And in your preparation for this hearing and this important responsibility, have you developed any thoughts that explains the mission creep and the empire building that we've seen at the ODNI in recent years?
Yes, Senator, I've had the opportunity to review the history of the ODNI, to speak to Ambassador Negroponte, the first Director of National Intelligence, as well as others who have served in this position. I think there are a number of contributing factors to the creation of centers, or not centers, but offices like the recently eliminated Office of DEI within ODNI, and other areas where I need to go in and assess the replication and the duplication of responsibilities that exist elsewhere and some of the other intelligence elements that ODNI has oversight over.
Okay, so what voter ID laws are racist?
Apologies, Mr. Cruz, your state of Texas, perhaps?
Okay, so you think the entire state of Texas is racist. What about requiring an ID to vote is racist?
So I think, sir, that's pretty reductive. I'm not saying the entire state of Texas is racist.
You just said my state of Texas, so you tell me, what about the Texas voter ID laws is racist?
So the fact that the voter ID law was put into place to diminish the political power of Latinos with racist intent and had been found to have
You're
racist
asserting
intent.
that. What's your evidence for that?
The federal district court that first resolved the constitutionality of Texas's voter ID law.
Okay, so your view is voter ID laws are racist. How about you, Mr. Yang?
I agree with Professor Tulsa. Voter ID laws can be racist.
Okay, that's
in other
two.
contexts.
Mr. Science?
There are some voter ID laws that are racially discriminatory in intent.
How about in practice? In intent, fine, you say there's some racist with a malevolent intent lurking in the back of their mind. But let's just talk about it as a practical matter. When I go to vote, they ask me for my ID. I pull out my ID, I show it to them, I vote. Is that racist?
If the law that requires you to do that was motivated by racially discriminatory intent
What about the
under
effect?
our
Set aside
Constitution.
Set aside intent. I'm asking about the effect.
Yes, in effect, I think that there are discriminatory effects from a number of voter ID laws.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Van Spakovsky.
No, particularly because every single state that has passed an ID law has put in a provision to provide a free ID to anyone who doesn't have one. The turnout numbers show it has no effect, and I would remind everyone that the current version of the Texas voter ID law for in-person voting, the Obama administration agreed in court, in a court filing, that they were satisfied with it and that it was not discriminatory.
You know, I have to say this range of question actually shows the wildly partisan nature of the Democrats' proposal. The record should reflect all three of the Democratic witnesses invited by the chairman maintained to this committee that voter ID laws can be, in many instances, in most instances, I think of the various ways they formulated, are racist. So let me tell you who disagrees with that. 35 states across the country disagree with that because 35 states have voter ID laws in effect. But not just 35 states. 81% of voters in America disagree with the radical views proposed by the Democrats and the Democratic witnesses. Not just 81% of Americans. 77% of black voters in America support voter ID law. 78% of Hispanic voters in America support voter ID laws. MALDEF should think about that. 81% of low-income Americans support voter ID laws. And yet, what this bill is about is putting radicals in charge of saying, if you require an ID to vote, that is racist and must be struck down. This is all about partisan power.
So this is a clip from last month's Senate Judiciary Committee hearings on voter ID laws supposedly being racist. And at this point, I just feel so bad for Senator Cruz because he has to deal with these whack jobs on a daily basis. So if you notice from watching, all of the Democrat witnesses say that voter ID laws are racist, but they provided no proof, literally no expansion on the facts. They just say, well, they have racist intent. So where's the proof of that racist intent? And where's the proof that it actually impacts people in a racist way? That first one was so disrespectful. She literally told Ted Cruz to his face that his state of Texas is racist, and then when asked for proof, provided none. Literally no proof. Of course, one of the only Republican witnesses to get a chance to speak brought up the facts. And the truth of the matter is that the Obama administration previously approved of the Texas voter ID laws that are on the books. So unless they want to tell Barack Obama that he's racist, I suggest they look inward. And Cruz bringing up those statistics was just so golden. So good. The truth is that the majority of Black Americans, the majority of Latino Americans, the majority of even low-income Americans who they say are incapable of obtaining an ID support voter ID laws. Newsflash to the left. If you think that Black people and minorities and poor people are incapable of getting an ID to vote, then you're the racist one. I hate to break it to you, but you have some serious bias that you need to unlearn if you think that I am unable to go into the DMV and obtaining an ID for myself.
If Donald Trump can convince the Republican Congress to get rid of the income tax for a system of tariffs instead, ladies and gentlemen, the economy will absolutely explode like you have not seen since the Reagan years, maybe bigger. The explosion of capital and investment in the United States and the basically $30,000 or so raise a lot of people are going to get will absolutely blow our economy up like you've never seen before.
I think we should have strong border security. It doesn't make sense for us to allow hundreds of thousands of people coming through our borders without us knowing who they are. Oftentimes in very hazardous situations and unmonitored situations that could do us long-term damage. I think we should have a serious employer verification system where employers, when they hire somebody, find out what their work status is. Are they able to work here legally? Right now, what employers will say is, well, we check their Social Security card. That's the best we can do. So we've got to set up a tamper-proof system and then hold employers accountable. You pay a fine, you learn English, you stay out of trouble, you've got a job. You go to the back of the line so that those who came here legally, that backlog is cleared before you have opportunities for citizenship. That is a reasonable approach, and one that will ultimately address the biggest problem for American workers, and that is the depressive effect of undocumented workers who aren't right now subject to oftentimes minimum wage laws or worker safety laws or all the other things that make them cheaper for employers. If they're out of the shadows, then we can make sure those laws are enforced and those cost advantages for hiring undocumented workers go away.
I did say that there is ample evidence, and indeed there is, of collusion of people in the Trump campaign with the Russians. There's clear evidence on the issue of collusion. There is ample evidence of collusion in plain sight. Plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy. And there is significant evidence of collusion. The president is someone who seems pathologically incapable of telling the truth. This president or people around him may be compromised by a foreign power.
Have you seen, do you have direct evidence of collusion with Russia?
There is direct evidence. There's abundant evidence of collusion, persistent allegations that the Russians have been laundering money through the Trump organization. Continues to believe Russian propaganda. That makes him dangerous to our country. Donald Trump and his campaign colluded with the Russians. There is ample evidence of collusion. There is significant evidence, much of it in the public domain, on the issue of collusion. I certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion. Ample evidence in the public domain on the issue of collusion. There is circumstantial evidence of collusion. There is direct evidence, I think, of deception. Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Any evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia?
There is circumstantial evidence, certainly, of collusion or coordination. There has been direct evidence of deception.
But to be crystal clear, this evening, as we speak, there is no hard evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. You said there's circumstantial evidence.
You know, I would not say, I would not phrase it the way that you did. And circumstantial evidence can be very powerful and is hard evidence. Kind of corrupt coordination of effort between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Trump campaign welcomed Russian help, built it into their campaign plan, never reported it, made full use of it, and then lied about it. I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial.
But you admit that, it's all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think...
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial.
At this point, I am convinced if Donald Trump gave every American household $1 million, you guys will find a reason to hate him. The way the left-wing media and the propaganda and the way that they have brainwashed everyday American citizen needs to be studied at this point. The lies that are being told day after day, ever since this man has taken office, is just so ridiculous. And the information can be researched and can be debunked in literally seconds. The latest lie that he cut individual Medicaid and Social Security, food stamps, and Section 8 for people is simply not true. But yet you guys still run with it and speak on it and make videos and think pieces, all because you have been trained and brainwashed to hate this man. That is some sick stuff. These leaders, this left-wing media, this propaganda, they really, really know that you guys are bots. NPCs, non-playable characters. You don't have the capacity to think for yourselves. What Trump law he does need to end is the No Child Left Behind law. Because this is the effect of just passing kids along through the school system, and they don't even know how to think or have any of the minuteness critical thinking skills. I am embarrassed and ashamed for you guys. The entire time these leaders got y'all intoxicated. I can't even call them leaders. They're not my leaders, but they're your leaders. They have you intoxicated on racism and lies. And the whole time, you are the patsy. You are the person that's being played. And the saddest part about it, you don't even know it. Shame on y'all.
We are going to fight it legislatively. We are going to fight it in the courts. And we're going to fight it in the streets.
Out of all races, what would you say is your least favorite race?
Listen, as a true Southern white male, my parents believe this. My grandparents definitely believe this. The worst race has to be the 43rd annual Daytona 500. February 18th, 2001. Turn 4, last lap. The day NASCAR died. The race that took Dale Earnhardt from us.
What would you do if I broke in your house?
Now, hold on just a minute, Skittles. I live down here in the South, and we protect ourselves with pit bulls and pew-pews. And the real question is, which one of them's going to get you first? Because I be diddly-dad-burn. We get up too early, stay up too late, and work too damn hard for our shit to be letting somebody who looks like they tasted the rainbow come in and take our stuff. No, honey. Down here, we just soon send your soul to Jesus and let him sort it out. You know what I mean? This is the way I see it. If you're ever skipping your happy ass down here on the streets in the South and you get this hair up your butt to come into one of our houses, I suggest you do one of two things, baby. You hit your knees and you start praying to the Lord because you fixing to meet him. Or you just keep skipping your happy ass until you get out of town. Now, I personally think the latter of the two choices is the better choice, but bless your heart. You can choose either one you like. Just, baby, choose wisely, okay? Have a nice day.
Hey everyone, tomorrow is a pivotal moment in our nation's history. At 10 a.m. Eastern Time, RFK will sit in front of the Senate Finance Committee for his confirmation hearing to be our nation's next Secretary of Health and Human Services. I urge everyone to call their U.S. senators over the following days and demand they vote yes on Bobby's nomination. He is more than qualified, he's proven, principled, and prepared to lead. I'll share a list below of key senators. If they represent your state, they need to hear from you. If they don't, please call your own senator and ask them to vote yes. We need as many votes as we can get. So this hasn't been widely reported, but in 2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff, please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. Big Pharma and Big Ag have exploited us for far too long. It ends now. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely.
So I would love the executive to provide us a detailed list of all supplementals needed before June 30th. When we did it over the weekend, we came up with a figure of almost $340 million in needed supplementals. And when you do, and there's a couple of new members on this committee, and there's new members in the 2 different bodies. $340 million in current year supplementals is an emergency. And if we don't pass that, my understanding, let's just pick one of the one section in the developmental disabilities. My understanding is you need $110 million before April 1st, or that will run out of money. Are you aware of that, and is that factored in? And that's just one part of that $340 million.
So, Mr. Chair, so yes, and we have some of those slides upcoming with those FY25 supplementals. Yes, the value for the FY25 supplementals that's factored into the FY26 amount, so the ending cash balance would include that, is as you calculated as well, $340 million.
Yeah, I mean, it could be $1 million high or $1 million low, but 340 is a big number. So I'm going to let you go to the next slide, but I just want to summarize for my membership for a second. So we're starting off with $360 million higher revenue that you guys are showing than we're showing. We're starting off with $846 million higher expenses for access than you're showing, and now we're showing $340 million in supplemental expense that needs to be done as an emergency basis to keep agencies running, and we're on page 12. And so, I mean, that alone is more than the whole increase of your budget of $1.3 billion.